There we are. There we are. There we are, Queens. Do we have people on here? Are people joining who are cool and slay? Okay, so we have 7 people in here. Whoa, thank you so much for the likes to the people that are sending likes. I appreciate and love it. Much love. Um, Keep on sending likes. Keep on sharing the video. Share it. Send likes right now. That would be great. Can you hear me well? Comment if you can hear me well. To the 40 people on here, 40 people sending likes can get us up to like 1,000 real quick. And that's what I want to get. I want to get more eyes and ears on this issue. I want to get more people talking about the issue. I want to get my audience talking about this issue because not enough people in this world. In this world, we got a whole little trouble. In this world, we got a whole lot of pain. 100 people on here. Lovely. How's everyone's week going? Is everyone slaying? Is everyone having a good day? Okay, well, we're gonna let it kind of boost up a little bit. Can you explain about the illegal occupation? I can once I kind of just going. You had a burrito. I'm very jealous. 250 people. Thank you to the 280 people. Um, 320 people. Thank you so much for everyone. Okay, well, here's the rules of this live, everyone. If you agree with me, share it and send likes. If you disagree with me, send a guest request and we'll talk. We'll have a good little conversation, you know? Um, okay. Well, let's let this 500 people on here. You just have to promise me that you will keep on sending likes while we are talking so we can get people going. I do upload to YouTube. I upload all of these to YouTube. Hello, how old are you? Poorly. How old are you? Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, you can't hear the guest. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Okay, keep on sending guest requests. We want to get someone up here. 640 people can really get going. Yeah. There's no one out of the 640 people on here that disagree with me. 0 people. 0 people. Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll get there sometime. Also, 100K, everyone. Woo! Send a guest request here if you disagree with me. But I did hit 100K. Can we get a shout out for that? Um, the guest requests are down here. And this one again. Live is buffering. Is the live buffering? We're good? We're not funding the Palestinian militias. That would be the 1-to-1. Okay, good. Okay. Let's see. Thank you so much for the people sending likes. Thank you so much for the people sharing. What you fail to realize is the US is Israel. The Jews have controlled the West for far too long. What a despicable thing to say, especially for someone that I imagine has incredibly bad views based on their world. Send a guest request if you disagree with me. We'll talk. Second, though, did you take a second to mourn the Israeli lives? Did I take a second to mourn the Ukrainian lives? Did I take a second to mourn the Russian lives? Did I take a second to mourn the Congolese lives? What is life? If not accepting the pain natural and many, many people suffering and working towards ending it, you know? So, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. How old are you?
23.
23, wonderful. Would you send a guest request to disagree on? Yeah.
Um,
Hello?
Oh my god!
It's too funny, guys. It's too funny. Um, Anyway, so I didn't say that we shouldn't cry, right? I just said I don't really have time to cry for everyone. I have time to work to make things better, right? So yeah. Okay. Also, don't spam everyone. Let's keep sending likes. Thank you so much to the people sending likes. Lights were on, but notice how real. What do you think of the prisoner swap? I don't know. It's a diplomatic thing, isn't it? You know, I'm not a diplomat. I don't really know that, but it is a diplomatic thing. I think it's. I don't think it gives Israel any moral points. Let's say that. I don't think it gives Israel any moral points because they were giving people they shouldn't have had anyway, by and large, women and children, back. So they were just like involving, following the international law they should have anyway. So let's keep on sending like so we can get like a real actual debate. Um, so hello. Oh, there we are.
So, I mean, first of all, you know the list of people that Israel released. Many of them were convicted of actual crimes like attempted M.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this
they
isn't
yeah.
just
So
people
they
that
were convicted
innocent
in.
people.
They, well, by and large. So first of all, by and large, they were. Second of all, the people that were convicted. I think something like 40%, 40 to 60% were still not convicted. So they were illegally detaining them, some of whom had been detained for more than 2 years. So, they had grown up in this system when they were detained at something 12 to 13, some of them. But by and large, they were convicted in military
Why do
courts that
you
had a
use
98% conviction rate. Right. So they had a 98% conviction
most
rate.
courts
If a
have
court has a
99 or 90.
98%, if a
Most
court has
most
a
our courts have.
98%
So do
conviction
our
rate,
courts.
no, they don't.
Yes, they do. Yes,
Name
they
a
do.
single
That's why
U.S. court that has a 99%
I
conviction
would
rate.
I would go on a limb and suggest that all of them have in the 90s plus. And why? Because typically
Name
DAs
me
and
name
prosecutors.
me a single court that
You
has
want me
that.
to Google you right now just for the sake of argument? I could
Yeah,
do it
do
with my
that.
other phone. All right,
Yeah, do
bear
it.
with me while we discuss this because functionally, most of the time when you go to trial, it's because you can get a conviction. Otherwise, there's a plea deal. For example, most of these incidences have video evidence of them committing their crimes. Now, if they actually chose to
So the
defend
U.S.
themselves, that's a
federal
different
court,
story.
the U.S. federal court system has a 75 to 85% conviction rate.
Federal court, right? Well, let's no
Okay.
focus the
I mean,
narrow
state
here.
court's going to be less.
I guarantee it's going to be more. State court conviction.
50 state summary. Let's see. Yeah. So, uh, do 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 do.
Look at this.
70%. So I'll just read it off
Florida has a hundred
alphabetically.
percent conviction rate, by the way, which is insane. In 2021,
Florida?
21, 22, Florida has a 100% conviction rate in 21,
Florida
22.
does? Because what I'm reading off,
Yep.
Alaska 70%, Alabama 55, Arizona 75, uh, Arkansas 44, California 64, Colorado 47, Connecticut
What's
Delaware
your source?
73.
What are you reading off of?
Right, so this is paper prisons about state report. This 50
I don't know what
50
paper
state
prison.
summary of
I would
non-conviction gap.
recommend
What are
going.
you reading off? What are you reading off saying
I read
that it's a
off of directly. I'll
100%
tell you what.
conviction
I
rate?
read floridacourts.gov. They gave a 100% clearance rate. Florida,
Clearance. What does a clearance
floridacourts.gov.
rate mean?
Oh, hold on. Here we go. Office of the Attorney General, Department of Legal Affairs. Okay, and I'll tell you the exact quote. Give me 1 second. There it is. What is the office conviction rate in 2021-22?
Okay.
The statewide prosecutor's office obtained the conviction of 354 defendants, resulting in a 100% conviction rate. So, but look, we're
The
focusing on
statewide
something here.
office. So here's what I
If
have from
if
the
there's
Pew
clear
Research Center. One
evidence
second.
for
Here's
you
what
of a
I have.
yeah,
The Pew Research Center. Sorry, I'm just going to read what came up from the Pew Research Center, which is what I'm actually reading off here. In the fiscal 2022, only 12 out of 1,944 total defendants in the Southern District of Florida were acquitted at trial. As was the case nationally, the vast majority of defendants in Florida's Southern District pled guilty that year, while 10% had their court cases dismissed. Okay,
right,
so
right. We know this to be true,
10%
though, by the way.
had their court cases dismissed. Right, so
These
Acquitted
wait, no,
and dismissed are different
you
functions. You see how there's a so that
wait,
would
wait, wait.
become a
Are you taking also
90%
civil
non-conviction
issues?
rate. No, that's
And what
you don't
year
plead
was that?
guilty
I
to
was
civil
reading
issues, brother. This is 2022.
2021, 22. I read directly from their website, so I don't know where you're reading from
I
exactly.
mean,
But
I'm reading off Pew
point
Research Center.
right. So my point really though is that if you see clear
But
video
that's acquitted
evidence.
by comparison
All right,
to
right, but you made it
denied.
seem
There's a
as if
different thing.
Israel was releasing like people that should have been released anyways when they committed crimes like
I mean, children
stabbings
should
and
be released, yeah.
trying
I mean, children that
children
have
who
not
commit
gone to
crimes.
trial in 2 years, children who have not
Uh-huh.
have been detained for 2 years are being detained illegally, right? So they should not
Okay,
detain children illegally.
all right, but
And their court
to try to
systems are well
conflate
known
and
for
to
flagrant bias against Palestinians,
attempting you're
right? So
really
no, I
trying to
don't trust
create.
the Israeli courts.
All right. You're really trying to create a moral equivalency between innocent Israeli civilians, kids who were sleeping in their beds and were taken by
No,
savage,
no,
team members to
I'm not even going to
people
let you
who
finish that.
committed
I did
crimes.
not
Why?
no, 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 that's a total lie. I did not in any way attempt
So,
to make a moral equivalency. I made no comment about the moral character of those that Hamas was releasing. Zero comment, right? If you want to continue speaking to me, speak honestly, because that is a flagrant
okay,
lie and
so
that is
then
despicable.
clarify.
I would never
Okay, so
say that.
all right,
Don't
all right.
lie.
So clarify.
I don't have
All
to
right, so
clarify.
clarify
What did I
what you
say that led you to that conclusion?
the fact that you said that Israel should have released these people because they are
How is that
women and
creating a
children
moral
by and large.
equivalency?
Because if the exchange of persons, right, between what Hamas took and what Israel holds in their prisons and jails, you were suggesting that they are on the same level, where one is a hostage and the
Why?
other
How
is a
did I suggest
prisoner.
that when I didn't comment on one and I did comment to the other? I did not comment on the moral character, the moral value of these people. I literally just commented on this.
Okay,
That's not
so then
suggesting moral
I
equivalency.
detract. All right, so I detract my comment. Then I apologize if I mischaracterized what you were saying or what you were suggesting. So I take it back, and I
Great.
apologize if I offended you. Now to the your headline, your green screen, and all U.S. military funding of the IDF, etc. Should you know the history of U.S. funding to Israel, like when it started, how it started, what the
I
what the
mean, not
function
line by
was?
line, but generally.
Right, but do you know that in 1948, until the Kennedy administration, the U.S. had an embargo on Israel, meaning no military funding whatsoever, because they didn't
That's not what
even
an
believe
embargo is. We just
that
didn't
is
actively support them. We didn't. We never had a trade
no.
embargo on them.
We had a military embargo on them. Look it up, and it's okay. It's
But
okay
a
to admit it.
military. What does it mean to have a military embargo?
Meaning that we don't sell to them military tech and equipment.
Oh, an arms embargo. Do you mean an arms
Okay.
embargo?
Yes.
Like,
An arms
okay, yeah, we
embargo,
didn't
military
sell.
embargo.
We weren't
Yeah.
attack. Wait, that okay? We weren't a tactical trade partner with them. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So we had an embargo on them. I mean, we didn't want to. We
Mm-mm.
didn't sell to them weapons. Okay. Either way, point
Yeah,
is that
we had an arms embargo. An embargo would
okay.
be something like we had on Cuba, for
Right.
example, which was a complete trade embargo. We just weren't a tactical
Right.
partner.
I
Yeah,
never
I'm
said
aware that
by
we
the
weren't a tactical partner up until 1967. Post
right. Right.
1967, we were a tactical partner. But I mean,
Exactly.
yeah. But
Exactly.
Western involvement in Israel was started well before that, right? There was CIA tacit support for Israel prior to 1967. That's well documented and admitted by the CIA. So.
Sure. I mean, yeah, naturally there was some level of support, right? At the end of the day, part of the U.S. foreign policy was to prop up and support Western liberal democratic countries, right? Especially during the Cold War and
Yeah,
contrast and combat communism.
Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Asia. Yeah, that's fine.
Exactly. So, okay,
All of which are
once it,
despicable psyop projects that I don't support in any way, shape, or form. So this isn't the winning argument. Yeah.
fair enough. So, no, no. So, really, it took the 1967 Six-Day War for the U.S. to view Israel as a strategic ally. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when we support countries, including Israel, we do it because it's in our interests. It's not because we do it out of the goodness of our hearts.
Yeah, and I think acting selfishly to the detriment of less powerful people isn't a good argument to continue doing it.
Well, I mean, that's your perspective, and that's okay to have that perspective. But
Yeah,
if you look at the history objectively and the role that Israel's played in the region, you could see that it's been a net positive, both for the U.S. and even the world as a whole. And I can
I
outline it to you
disagree.
if
It's
you
been a
like.
world with the whole. I mean, it's. I would argue, by and large, the actions and propaganda by the Zionist entity within the Middle East has made Jewish people less safe in the world. Has actively and consistently, like ingrained imperialist imperialist
How are
violence
they
within that
imperialists?
area and continue to stoke racial and ethnic violence in that area. So
So
no, I mean
Israel's
what?
responsible for the sectarian violence that happens around the Middle East outside of Israel.
I didn't say they were solely responsible. I said they contributed to an increase in anti-Semitism. They have
Right,
contributed
I
to
heard that part.
sectarian violence, and they have contributed to racial and ethnic violence.
Let
So
me
why
ask
do
you a
you
question. So
rephrase that
then,
as
and
if I said it was the only thing that was important?
I didn't
Because
say it was the only thing,
that's
but
dishonest.
okay,
Okay,
okay.
so
Well,
they're
I mean,
not. So you said, are
let's
they
let's
responsible for it?
let's give each
Yes,
other a
in
little bit
part.
of slack, right? All right. Okay, yes, in
Yes,
part.
in part
So
they
I
are. I think
disagree
you
with
heard what
that.
I said.
I
The
disagree.
rephrasing wasn't
All right.
necessary.
And I disagree with that premise. I disagree with the idea that somehow Israel, in part at least, is responsible for sectarian fighting. I think that in fact the quite opposite, that
I
Israel
mean, they
has
engage in it.
kept that. Can I finish? Israel has maintained a status quo that helps prevent the escalation of sectarian fighting. For example, when Saddam Hussein wanted to develop nuclear weapons and Israel destroyed the Osirak nuclear facility in 1982. Fast forward to
Why did
1991,
Saddam Hussein
colon,
want to? Why did Saddam Hussein want to develop? Why did Saddam Hussein rise to power?
well, I mean, that was the ousting of a monarchy that Iraq had through a coup d'etat,
Ousting
right?
by who?
Not the US, because at the time the monarchs were
Hmm.
actually, the different monarchs, especially the Hashemites, were allies of the West.
Yeah.
It
And
was part of the
who put the
pan-Arabist socialist movements,
yeah
the
who put
Ba'athist
the
Party.
who supported the people that were ousted during the Pan-Arabist
Okay, no, no. So by the way,
revolt in
we
that
only
area?
let me
Who was
finish.
supported? The same
Let
people
me.
that supported the Saudi
Oh,
Arabians getting control of Saudi, or the Saudi government getting control of Saudi Arabia. Same people that supported the Jordanian royal government getting control of Jordan. Right. The only difference is that this one didn't stick
no,
in Iraq. That
that's
was a
not
hundred
true.
percent Western
No.
meddling.
Again, I listen. I don't
It
know
was a
what
hundred.
your
Yeah,
I
no.
don't
The
know what
reason
your
that the
educational
Iraqi, the
background is,
reason,
but you're objectively wrong in this situation. This specifically, you're wrong, and I'll tell
I
you
mean,
why.
I'm not.
Because the coup d'etat that happened in Iraq was prior to any American intervention in Iraq. The only reason the U.S. actually started funding Saddam Hussein was because of the conflict with Iran. Okay, so you can make that argument that yes, the U.S. supported a dictator who had been a
We,
dictator already for decades, but we only started really supporting him because it was in our interest to combat Iran, who just experienced a revolution 3 years prior. Okay, so that is
it's not true. Iraq was formed by the West. Like you can't cut this
all right.
history
No, no,
off.
you're talking
The
about the French and the
Iraq,
British.
Iran, the
The
French,
French,
the British, and the Americans later supported the
no.
so the French and the British drew up Iraq. That's true. And that's what I'm talking about. Western influences creating this, right? And America doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? England is a major power allied. Well, I mean, I would say America is a major power allied with England, right? We have shared tactical goals for a very long time. So when I'm going to refer to the West, I'm going to refer to the West as a whole, right? Because they have consistently had similar interests, by and large, similar actions. The West created Iraq. The West installed puppet leaders in the Middle East that supported them, and then there were pan-Arabist movements that pushed against them. Right, that's how
Right,
Gaddafi
and
rose
revolted.
to power. That's what
Yeah.
Gaddafi pushed for, and then America was just another iteration of Western imperialism in this area. Right, none of this exists in a vacuum. All of it is continuing a narrative of them putting in puppet governments. Right, that's why they supported Saddam Hussein for a period of time because they thought they could control them. They didn't. Right, so you saying, "Oh, look at Israel, another imperialist power." Right, they're so stabilizing against these things that are imperialist problems, right? That's not a winning argument because fundamentally, the reason Saddam Hussein is in power in the first place is because of Western imperialism and Western
Well, I mean, so you
what
could, it's fair
intervention.
to, sure, it's fair to make an argument that when the Brits and the French carve up the land after the Ottoman Empire fell, that they made countries that just didn't make sense. For example, clumping together different religious groups, different tribes, and putting them in a
But they
country.
also propped up dictators, the Saudis, for example.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, the Hashemites, right? The Saudis are the Hashemites that then the sons were given different kingdoms
Well, the
across the Middle
Hashemites are a
East.
larger group than just them, but yeah,
Right.
it
So,
was
I
a
mean,
specific group within the Hashemites, but
well, yeah, no,
because there are
the
Hashemites
father
within
well, the
Jordan,
father
for
was
example.
Saud, right? And then the sons were the ones that became the kings of Jordan, Iraq, and even Egypt, right? They were spread across the region. Now, okay, so again, we can go back to blaming Britain if it makes you happy. I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? I've got no no dog in the
Yeah,
fight
but
here with
America's a
regards to that.
major ally and a tactical organizer with
Right,
Britain,
but
right?
America
They're part of
wasn't
the Big
part of that
Five.
agenda. No, right, but then during after
What
World
I'm
War
saying is
One, America
America's
wasn't part of
continuing
that
because
agenda.
America was an isolationist for this period of time, by and large,
Right,
and then
relatively,
they
yes.
just continued the legacy. But
Okay, but
also,
okay,
yeah, okay.
so
Sorry,
no, no,
in fairness, I don't really know who the Hashemites like consist of. So I'm gonna
it's
take back
okay.
my
I
comments
mean,
on there. It seems that the Saudis were not in fact Hashemites, but
it's okay. But my point being is that look, at the end of the day, if part of our foreign pillars of foreign policy have been to support democracies, to support societies that embrace, the Western capitalistic ideology, right? As Israel does by and large, even though it does have many socialist systems in place too. It only makes sense that Israel would be a natural ally of ours. And for you to just so arbitrarily
yeah, and
suggest
I
that we
don't
should
support
stop
that
funding them,
agenda.
well, why?
So because I
Why
don't
don't you
support
support it?
propagating like I don't support the long history of destabilizing governments in support of American interests that is ostensibly for democracies, liberal democracies, and capitalist democracies, but number one may end up as liberal capitalistic democracies by comparison to socialistic democracies, which I would prefer liberal socialistic democracies, but by and large end up in unstable or totalitarian governments, right? That hurt both the people that went in and the natives of that area. Right. So that number one, that intervention doesn't help people. By and large, it destabilizes the people, or it pushes them to extreme totalitarian areas, or we actively support the extreme totalitarian areas. Right. We can point to what happened in Saudi Arabia, what happened in Iran, what happened in Iraq, what happened in Afghanistan, what happened in Qatar. Right. Like we have what's happening in Yemen, what's happening in Libya. We can go through literally any number of these. Right. Honduras, Guatemala, Bolivia. Like all of this happens. And they all have different outcomes slightly, but by and large, it looks the same. Either we, at first instance, support the dictator because he is ostensibly less communist, or we support a slightly more democratic government, destroy all institutions in the area, and then they devolve into extremism, or we destroy all institutions, then the only institution that stands is the dictator. None of those are better
So,
outcomes
but
than
what do you
simply letting
suggest?
them
Okay,
develop
so
naturally.
right, fair. Okay, so but since you don't have Doc Brown's DeLorean and you can't go back in time, what do you suggest in 2023, right? Because we're in November of 2023 at this point, that right now what we uproot and remove all of our influence in the region, which would result in basically most of these states falling to some sort of T group or other form of extremism? Do you want the Muslim
Wait, but
Brotherhood
that's really
taking over
interesting. That's
Egypt?
really interesting. I
Sure.
agree. So I agree that we shouldn't just this is what Britain did, right? Britain
Right.
uprooted and walked away, right? But importantly, they messed everything up first. Okay. Um, so that's the important part is we stop messing stuff up. We stop active US intervention, right? That comes first before we remove the US institution. Okay, so I think right now we're at the stage of let's remove the U.S. Like influence. Let's remove the U.S. indoctrination. Let's remove the U.S. Radicalization and polarization that happens whenever we intervene, and then we can talk about removing the U.S. institution that keeps some of these places stable. How we remove the U.S.
So,
institution, how we do those things, that's an interesting question. But that's an interesting question for 5 or 7 years down the line when we stop actively polarizing, tearing apart other institutions, right?
all right.
Like
So then
that.
I'm assuming you're
Let's stop
also
being the problem
okay.
before we talk about the complex solution.
All right. So then, but so you know that the second largest benefactor of U.S. military aid is Egypt, second only to Israel. Do you know what would happen if America
Second
were to
largest.
turn
Wait,
off
in terms of what? In terms of what metric? Per capita? Net? What are you talking about?
net, real term, real money?
Net?
Like
Real
Israel
direct
gets
money?
real direct money, yes. Two
I
point
don't believe
five
that's
billion
true.
annually. Google it. Fact check me, bro. Take your time. It was Afghanistan for the longest time for obvious reasons because we were there. But since the end of that war, Israel is the
Jordan's
largest.
number two.
What does Jordan get annually? 2 point something
Okay.
billion.
Top countries receiving foreign U.S. military aid.
Yep.
Okay. This doesn't bifurcate between foreign aid, and military aid. Let's see if we can get just military aid.
Yeah, get just military
Where
because
is Statistica? Let's see. Israel, Afghanistan, Egypt, Iraq. That's 2020.
yep.
Okay. 2022. Do we have? Where are you getting your numbers?
I mean, so we know that for a fact every 10 years it's a deal that Congress signs, and right now it's at 38 billion for 10 years, so 3.8 billion to Israel, and I believe it's
So this is
2.2 billion a year for Egypt with an increase
so
every year.
as of 2020, which is the most recent according to Wikipedia that they can directly show. But I mean, if we can actually get a 2022, that would be great. It's Afghanistan, Israel, Jordan, Egypt, Ethiopia.
Right, but
But yeah,
Afghanistan
okay.
won't
So
be
if
relevant
we cut
anymore.
off
Yeah.
Afghanistan, yeah, then it's Israel, Jordan, Egypt. But
Okay.
fine. Okay,
And
what's your point regarding it? Let's see if it
my point,
matters.
okay,
Yeah.
it matters, and I'll tell you why. Because my point at the end of the day is that if America were to turn off the taps, okay, for example, Egypt, which in a short amount of time, and I'm talking a few years, if that even, you would have just collapse of their power structures and their status quo, where a group like the Muslim Brotherhood could very easily rise up, take control, and turn Egypt into either
But
Iran or
once again,
maybe
you
even
completely ignored my actual
quasi-Turkey.
answer.
No, 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 I know, but
I
you
didn't
said
say,
initially
wait, you're just saying, you're arguing, this is actually a
you said
straw
to
man.
turn off the
I
tap, right?
didn't say, you're actually a straw man. I didn't say we pulled out all American institutions now.
So what's the first step? Stop aid, stop
Wait,
funding, stop. What's it? Remind me
wait,
what
but
your first step was.
you heard me when I said that, right?
Right. You said the institutions later, but
Okay,
I'm
so what
talking about
you're
you said the
arguing,
aid.
so you recognize that, you recognize that making an argument about pulling out
Okay.
all American funding and institutions right now is
So
disingenuous, right?
tell me what the first
No,
step is
did you
again. Just
hear me when
remind
I
me.
said that? Because you just,
All right, but I
that's just,
remind me because if I got confused, I'm okay. I'm a human. Remind me what the first step was then.
I don't think you were confused. I think you were being
I
deceptive.
really am, but this is why we're having a conversation. Tell me what your first step was. It's not
Okay.
a hard question.
My first
What was
step
your
was
first step?
stop immediately. Whoa.
Well, what?
Oh, it's not a hard question. It's a question you shouldn't have to ask. But I answered it. I'm happy to repeat it for you. What I said was the first step is that we stop actively polarizing and separating and supporting dictatorships and extremist groups, right? So the actions that we took, right, in the Cold War in Afghanistan, right?
So
The
how do we
actions that we
support
took
them?
with
What? How does that translate in action? Like, what does that mean to
well, I
stop
mean,
supporting them?
cut off like 90% of funding to the CIA. Like that's a good first step because the CIA, by and large, with their information, is one of the largest, dissipators of polarization and racialization within the world. Right, Radio Free Asia is one of the largest misinformation campaigns that received something like $40 million from America within the past fiscal year. Right, so there's a lot of things that we do tacitly, right, that support US aims that don't at all support institutions. Okay, so I think institutions can come first. So we support genuinely independent institutions in these areas that aren't fundamentally reliant on America. Because what you're saying is all these countries are helpless without America, right? I agree. The reason for that is because America has made them helpless without America, right? So how do we do that? We don't turn around and screw them over by making them helpless and then leaving. That's what Britain did. It didn't turn out well. We ended up with Pakistan and India. We ended up with a split Cyprus. We ended up with a split Malaysia. We ended like really bad things, right? What we do is we support genuinely independent institutions at the time, right? That's why, for example, we use the leverage that we have in Israel for them to stop politically supporting extremist groups like Hamas, like they did, right? We use them to maybe support more, sectarian liberal things like Fatah or like the PA, and genuinely support that, or hand over control of this area, for example, to Qatar, right, which are already supported because we have like allies that are not the best, but they would do better controlling it. So it looks something like that. Is instead
That
of
is
putting ourselves
wild.
and our interests first,
So, Will, with all due
right?
respect, that's wild
We
because
actually set up institutions that'll last.
Qatar is the manifestation of that support for corrupt regimes that are typically the minority within a country. Like if you look at the demographics of a country like
Oh
Bahrain
no,
or
I'm
Qatar,
aware, but it's also a
so then
tactical ally of America.
oh okay, and Israel isn't. Like this is what I'm talking about.
Wait, no,
Like
no, no,
we
no, no. So I'm saying
uh-huh.
this is interesting.
Okay.
Qatar has a tactical allyship for America. So America loses all moral backbone if they want to talk about caring about human rights, if they want to talk about not having a dictatorship, right? this is where this argument goes. America's foreign policy is in fact not based on stability for other countries. It is in fact based on instability for other countries, or building a stable authoritarian regime that agrees with them. So what I'm going to do when we talk about this is call them on that and say, hey, just put it under the stable authoritarian regime you already support.
Okay, you can
Like,
call them out on that, but at the end of the day, is stability better than instability? Because again, if you're suggesting
I mean,
that the
but I'm
initial,
just saying, according to America, it is.
well, according to the
Right.
world, it
That's
is.
that's fundamental to the American.
Would
So
you have
what I'm
disagreed
saying
with
is,
the Marshall Plan
you're a
in
hypocrite.
post
I
World
like
War
this
II?
more than this.
No,
What?
no, no. Listen. Your opinion is extremely convoluted. But at the end of the day, I have a question for you. Would you have supported or been against the Marshall Plan
Once again,
after
if you're
World
gonna
War
make a
II?
comment about my opinion, make a point.
That's my point. Like, would you have been against the Marshall
How is it
Plan after
convoluted?
World War II? What's
How is it
convoluted
convoluted?
because you're kind of all over the place. Because on one hand, you're saying that we need to stop propping up um, uh, corrupt regimes that polarize and create the very type of extremism that happen in these
Hmm.
countries. But on the other hand,
No, no,
Qatar
no. That's
is
not what
a
I said.
tactical ally
That's
that
not what I
we
said.
could
That's not,
use
wait. So
to.
that's not what I said.
All right, well, that's what I heard, but okay.
I don't know how
But
you
I'm
heard that.
curious. I'm curious. I'm curious. Listen, Will, would you have been against the Marshall Plan after World War II? Because that was
I think
extreme
the Marshall Plan's
interventionism
interesting.
in order,
I would have been against certain portions of the Marshall Plan, right?
such as
Especially the racialization that was
rebuilding,
included in that regarding the
rebuild,
Balkans.
right, but rebuilding Europe for the sake of preventing
Wait, but I don't have
communism
to
from
take.
spreading
I've answered
across?
your question. I don't have. You can. Do you want to describe the Marshall Plan more to me?
I mean, I could if you
Because
want
I
to,
know what
but
it is.
okay, good. And I'm glad that you do. But at the end of the day, the
So
modern
why'd
day
you
Marshall
interrupt me
Plan,
to? Why'd you interrupt me to describe it to me? Like I know what it is, and I answered you quite coherently. I'm for certain parts of it. I think that's fine. If you support the bombing of certain areas, you should generally pay for it to be rebuilt. And if there was extreme devastation in one of your allies' countries, generally it's a good idea to rebuild institutions and areas. Actually, I'm for stabilization by and large. And the reason it works in Britain or in France or in Germany, right, is because it is in America's interest generally to create stable institutions in those areas because we have the ethnic and cultural commonalities with it that would lead them to be allies with us anyway, right? The reason that I don't necessarily support the racialization that they do within the Balkans, for example, is because they racialized to falsely create that organization. There is a difference with that when you talk about the Middle East, where they wouldn't have those natural cultural ties with us. They
wait a
wouldn't have
minute,
that
but
natural ethnic ties with us. So
the
they have to. They have to artificially create them.
So post World War II, the Balkans, though, basically fell to a dictatorship. It was actually part of the non-aligned movement under Tito, right? So Yugoslavia, for example, was part of the very slim organizations of countries, or cooperation of countries that were part of the non-aligned movement, meaning they didn't want to be with the Americans or the Russians. So don't really know what the relevance to the Balkans outside of Greece, which is technically the Balkans, I guess. It's part of that area. But if
I mean,
again, so
the
you're
Cypriot
for.
plan, mass racialization
Okay,
regarding
so but
Greece. Yeah,
if you are
they
okay, so if
massively
you
supported Greek
so
nationalism.
you understand the need to support countries, especially like you said in Europe, that have shared
Wait, but it
values,
doesn't
shared
generalize. I've explained to you why it's different.
right. But
But okay.
would you describe Israel at least in the same light as you would other, Western liberal democratic, partially European
No,
states?
I'd say we support Israel is an entirely artificial construct. They are the peak of settler colonialism. This is
What?
actually
Wait,
interesting.
what?
So you can either one second, you can
Yeah.
either completely
Okay.
subjugate. One second, you can either
Yeah.
completely subjugate a people's right and install a few set of people that rule over them. That then you can coerce these few set of people to support you, or you can fundamentally change the demographic. And fundamentally changing the demographic isn't something we typically try to do in the Middle East because it's really hard to do. But the U.S. got really lucky with this one because people had already been trying to do it with Israel, with mass European um, immigration into there. And of course, Israelis culturally and by and large ethnically have a support for the West, not only because of their history, but also because of a huge amount of their origins. So, I mean, yeah, but because it is artificial, right? So you can artificially create sport in a lot of ways. One of those ways is by mass moving a lot of people that have that commonality into that area. That makes sense. It's what China's doing with Tibet right now,
All right. So can I ask you a
with the
question?
Uyghur stuff.
Do you agree that Jewish people are indigenous to the land? Like there's a Jewish indigeneity to the
Oh,
land of
okay.
Israel?
Wait. So now we're not talking from the American perspective. You now want to talk about the justification
No, because
for the
you talked
foundation of
because you
Israel.
know I'm specifically to the first thing that you said with regards to Jewish that Israel is a settler colonial project. How do you
Oh,
colonize a
absolutely.
land that you're indigenous to?
I don't think the Zionist project has a rightful claim to indigeneity.
What, you don't believe
I
Jewish
think
people
lots
have
of
an
Jews have right.
indigeneity to the land?
I no. Oh,
Okay,
wait. That's an
all right. Well,
interesting question to ask.
wait, right. It's a fair one though, right?
Do you want to rephrase what I said again?
Well, okay, so you're saying the
Because
Zionist
that's a
movement.
really
What
important
is what so
difference.
then so what is Zionism? Zionism is the political manifestation for Jewish sovereignty and
What did
self-determination
I
in the
what
land of Israel.
what I said was very precise. I do not believe the
Okay, well
Zionist
then
project of Israel.
reiterate. Uh-huh. Okay.
I do not believe the
I'm
Zionist
listening.
project of Israel has a claim to indigeneity
Why?
because they have fundamental contradictions to that claim in expressing that claim superficially. So their acceptance of converts,
What?
for example, right? Their active denial of native Arab people or native other Semitic people is directly contrary to that. So those
So
are the
first
main
of all,
issues. They deny they deny
Ju
what?
Judaism is the only Abrahamic religion that isn't missionary, that doesn't go out and pursue and actually look to convert
Wait,
people.
relevance?
Does relevance because you suggested that somehow or not the majority, but because they do accept converts, that therefore any
Yeah.
convert isn't technically ethnically Jewish, and therefore they don't have claim to the land, ignoring the fact that the vast
Wait, so
majority of
I
Jews
think
aren't
I so
converts.
here's the thing. Here's the thing.
So what about the
Here's the
majority of
what?
Jews who aren't converts? What about the majority of
Wait,
Jews
no,
who are
here's the
not
thing.
converts
Well, what about the
who do have
majority of Semitic people that they don't give indigeneity to? So I had 2 points here. Number
okay?
one, that they define Judaism in a religious way, right? That's why I talk about converts. They're not defining it in a ethnic way. They're not defining it in a purely indigenous way. They're defining it in a religious way, right?
But
And if we want to talk about defining it in a
an ethno religion, right?
no,
It's an
no,
ethno religion. It's a
it,
nation of people.
according to their doctrine, it is, and there is an ethnicity that is Jewish, and there is a religion that is Jewish, and there's a large overlap, right? But they have chosen to prioritize the religion over the ethnicity, so I will too. Do you see how that works?
I mean, if it helps you sleep at night, sure. But at the end of the day, we can distinguish that although Judaism is a religion, it's also an ethnicity. Okay, and
But
therefore
it actually doesn't make a whole lot of sense to describe ubiquitous ethnicity. There are multiple sub ethnicities of it. It's a common culture, right? But
right, common
first of
shared
all, the
history,
way they
right,
define
all those
wait,
things,
1 second,
common
because the way
language.
they define Jew 1 second, because the way they define Jewish, um, is not in line really with how ethnicity passes. They have built into their system the matrilineal line, which makes no sense if you're talking about indigeneity, right? So they accept so like what I'm an eighth Jewish, right? So I just am not indigenous according to Israel because I happen to have the wrong grandparent that was Jewish, right? That's nonsense regarding indigeneity. They accept converts, and the most important, and if we want to talk about scale in terms of the scale, the most reason I do not believe they have this claim is because they don't accept most of the indigenous people there, right? So the Palestinians that have been living there for generations on generations on generations on generations, right, have certainly a indigeneity claim. If you do genetic tests, for example, they have Canaanite DNA at quite similar rates as Ashkenazi Jews, as quite similar rates as Sephardic Jews. But Israel does not give them the same rights of return and actively denies their rights of return. So if you're going to
Well, right,
arbitrarily, right, when you have three
they have
major flaws in your definition of indigeneity,
all
then
that,
I'm going
but
to say,
they
yeah,
have other
you don't get to
countries
claim
that have
that.
other countries. So they have other countries, by the way. Like, I would say that if Israel was the sole country in the Levant that dominated the entire of the Levant, then your argument would hold water. But there's Lebanon, there's Syria, there's Jordan,
Wait, but if
right? There are
Israel
other
wants to be the
countries
land
that
of the indigenous, they should accept all indigenous.
no, but
Otherwise,
that
they are
goes
not the land of the
against
indigenous.
no, so it goes against the idea of Jewish sovereignty and self-determination. That was the goal of Zionism.
No,
If
no,
you
no, no.
don't believe in the
I don't
goal of
support.
Zionism,
Sorry,
then
I
I
do not
understand that.
believe. Great. If that's the idea of Zionism, I do not agree with that.
And that's fair. You don't
I do
have to
not
agree with
believe.
it. But if
I
you're going
believe
to
in
let me give me
indigenous.
30
Sorry, to be
seconds.
clear,
Hold on.
I believe in indigenous sovereignty. I
All right.
believe in indigenous self-determination.
Give
And
me
if they're
30 seconds.
this is the disconnect,
Jesus.
is
But they can
they're
have
justifying Jewish
self-determination in
sovereignty on
Jordan, in
indigenous
Syria, and Lebanon. They can have the self-determination and sovereignty in these other states that have representative of their people. Because look, again, if you do not agree with Zionism as a goal for Jewish sovereignty and self-determination, that's fair. You're entitled to your, opinions. But at the end of the day,
but that's what we're
if you
talking about.
okay, that's fine. But at the end of the day, if you choose to then ignore though the movement of people that decided after 2,000 years of persecutions, inquisitions, pogroms, expulsions, culminating with the Holocaust, that finally they achieved that self-determination. Good luck trying to negotiate with these people, because now you are denying their very existence.
Wait,
You're
do you want
denying
to
their
move
very
from a
identity.
hypothetical to a practical? Why
No,
are
it's
you
a
doing this?
practical. I'm doing this. I'll tell
Because
you why. Because
you asked me, why do you believe they're not indigenous? Right? I gave you an answer, and now you're saying, okay, cool, you can believe that. Why ask me the question in the first place?
well, I mean, I wanted to know where you stood on it. I wanted to know exactly what your belief was
But you
on
don't
it.
want to have a
And
discussion
again, I'm
about
not.
it.
No, I'll definitely have, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have a
Okay,
discussion
then
where I'm trying to
engage in the
illustrate to you
discussion.
that
No, but
I
that's
am engaging
you've
in the
moved
discussion.
away from that. That's a pivot. That's moving from
I don't know if it's a I don't know
an
if it's a Gen
evaluative.
Z thing,
that's a
dude, but
moving from an
you were moving
evaluative
up
political claim
100
to a
miles an
wait.
hour.
No, that's moving from an evaluative political claim to a practical negotiating claim. Right. That's an obvious pivot. Right. So engage in the
Okay,
actual
so fine. So
question.
we can focus on
Justify
the
to me why the Zionist project is indigenous.
okay, because once again, if you agree that Judaism as a whole, both as an ethnic group and a religion, have indigeneity to the land, I don't care if that
Uh,
encompasses
I
all
don't
of the
believe the
Jewish people
religion. I don't
or even a
believe
part of them.
I don't believe your religion makes you indigenous. So no, I
Okay,
disagree with
fine.
that.
So the ethnic Jewish people that do have ethnic connection to the land, they are entitled to be able to return to their native land. Their
Yeah, that's
indigeneity is
fine. I just
intact.
don't think that's
Okay.
what the Zionist project's doing.
Well, I mean, the Zionist project has obviously evolved over time, right? But the goal ultimately was Jewish sovereignty, and not necessarily because if you know
Yeah, but that's not indigenous
The early
sovereignty.
Zionists weren't even religious; they were secular, and the goal, once again, was identifying Judaism
It's
as an
just, I mean,
ethno-religion
just
and a
not
nation of
true.
people.
When are you talking? When were they secular?
Theodore
The
Herzl was
1880s? That's not
secular.
true.
Yes, it is. Theodore Herzl was secular. Jabotinsky was secular. They were not religious Jewish people. They were bourgeoisie,
That's
middle
not
class.
entirely true.
All right, look it up, bro. Please do. I'm glad you have the computer in front of you. You have the opportunity to fact check.
Yeah, let's go.
Yep. In fact, the first
Theodore
Zionist.
Herzl.
Yep.
Do, 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 do. Um, Dominantly. Oh, he claimed to be Sephardic, but then he had no evidence of it. Sorry.
But he means
Um,
secular in the sense from the religious aspect, right? He wasn't a religious Jewish person. I know that big beard and everything could be misleading, but he was secular.
hmm.
Yep,
He
I know.
subsequently Oh wait, Paulina. Okay. He subsequently converted, resenting the way he had been persuaded to circumcise, became successfully a Baptist and then a Catholic, and
There you
filtered with
go.
other
He was
Protestant
he even
denominations.
lost Judaism. That's
Hilarious.
it. It's
But he converted
hilarious.
for,
I didn't even know that part. That's hilarious.
yeah, he actually beat, but that's interesting. Wait, where is he? Nowhere does it say he's secular. It just says that he's Jewish, which one would assume he's also the religious. Um,
Not necessarily, because
let's see.
at the time, like,
I
have you
mean,
ever heard of the Dreyfus Affair? I mean, there were plenty of Jews who had already basically, uh, what's it called, assimilated completely into their European societies. And aside from them just being ethnically Jewish, they were, for all intents and purposes, Frenchmen, Germans, Prussians, whatever. Jabotinsky was one of them. I heard Theodor Herzl was one of them. It's good, man. I'm
okay,
helping
he
you get.
personally was an atheist. Yeah, but
Yeah.
he made the claims of Zionism on the basis of religion,
Well, no,
on the
but
basis of like returning.
of an ethno-religion,
Did he
right?
not?
No, so on the basis once again of an ethno-religion, on the fact that
But then
regardless of how,
why would he support, for example, converts being accepted?
because
That's
again,
a
at the end of the,
fundamentally religious.
all right,
That's a
but
fundamentally religious view.
agreed. And again, you could poke holes in
So wait,
anything,
your
but
claim was that the original Zionists were secular,
and
The
it's
original
true.
Zionism was secular. That's not true.
But you just yourself found that Theodore Herzl
No,
was
no,
an
no. The
atheist.
original Zionism. If the original Zionism has a religious claim in it, it is not secular.
Right, but we talked about it, how
So
it
the
was
original
ethno
Zionism was
religion.
not secular.
It was
So
secular.
the
I know
original
you like to spin
Zionism
it
was not
for the sake
secular.
of the
Wait, no, no,
W.
no.
You're trying to
Wait.
spin it in a way, and that's okay. I can
So
understand
you
you
said
wanting
the
to do
original
that.
Zionism. Wait. The original
Come on, Will. Be
Zionism
better
was
than
not
that. Be better
secular.
than that, Will. You can be better than that.
The
Take the
original.
L one time.
Wait. So I,
Take
I
the
am
L.
wrong. I was wrong that Herzl was secular. That doesn't mean the
All
original
right.
Zionism was not secular.
Well,
So the
if he's
original
one of the founding
Zionism was
fathers
not
of it.
secular.
All right, so why don't you look up Jabotinsky, see if what his affiliation
Wait, no,
was,
no.
because he
So
was
there can
another
be
founding
secular
father.
people that started it while it itself not being secular, and them in their capacity of Zionists could be supporting a religious view. If they support converts going back to going back to Israel, that is a religious view.
Dude, that is mental gymnastics in order to try to draw a conclusion that's simply wrong. All right,
Wait,
with
argue
all due
against it
respect, like
then.
but I argue against it just because Judaism does allow for converts doesn't mean that every single person therefore has to be associated with the religion outside of the converts,
But
right?
if you
Because you're
believe
right,
that,
a
that is a
convert,
religious view.
right? But that's for conversions.
So
But
they
what percent? You
believed
want to
it
Google what? You want
and
to Google what
supported it.
percentage of Jews are converts? Because
Wait,
I
but no,
guarantee
no,
you
no.
it's a
So
tiny
if they
fraction.
supported a religious view, it was not a secular movement.
Well, yeah, but they also supported it as an
So the movement,
as an ethnic
so
group.
the
So
movement
which
that they
one
created
trumps
was not
which?
secular. So the
Well, I mean,
movement that they created
that's
was not
mental
secular.
gymnastics to create confirmation
So
bias that
argue
just
against
incorrect.
it. If the
I
movement has a
I
religious
literally just did
belief built
because
into it, it's not.
the vast majority of the movement had to do with just Judaism as a nation and ethnicity, not necessarily
But
the
if a
religion. So
portion of
you'll
it has to do with it as a religion, it's not secular.
yeah, a very small portion. It's still very much
So it
secular.
wasn't secular.
Look, you can't take away obviously the religious aspect of Judaism as a religion, right? Like
So
that's
when you
part
said
of
that
it's
the original
ingrained in it
Zionism
though.
was secular, you were wrong.
I was still right because they were still secular Jews, but they were still
You
Jews.
said they were.
But
Wait,
then
do you want to
it wasn't a
you want to
religious
revise that? Do you
movement,
want to
and I'll
revise that and
stand
say
by
that it
that.
was mostly secular?
Fine, it was mostly secular. Would you agree that it was mostly
Okay.
secular too then? Come on, Will.
Well, I mean, in the fact that it was mostly actually no, because by and large it was supported by Christians. So, like a lot of the support for
For all the
Zionism
wrong
was
reasons.
Christian theology.
For all the
Exactly.
wrong reasons.
No, I
Right.
agree.
Okay.
And the Jews that supported it generally had a bit better, very materialistic reasons. But so no, I don't think at
No,
any
no, no,
point
no.
you can call it
So okay.
secular.
If you understand Theodor Herzl and Jabotinsky, they really started the idea of the Zionist movement and Zionist Congress in the wake of the Dreyfus Affair and the Russian pogroms, right? It was just extremely traumatic experience for the Jewish people in Europe at the time because of the Dreyfus Affair. If you know the story, I can tell it to you in brief. It was a French captain, Dreyfus, who was accused of espionage in the Franco-Prussian War. Now, obviously, the accusation was false, but they imprisoned him, and it created a wave of anti-Semitism of the duplicitous, disloyal Jew, right? Now, he was exonerated eventually because some journalists did an investigation and found out it was
Wait, no,
completely
I
other.
don't. Wait, so sorry, I'm just gonna.
Uh-huh,
Wonderful.
right.
Make your point about Zionism.
All right, so no, so you understand that from the founding fathers of the Zionist movement, they saw it as just the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of no matter how assimilated the Jewish people will become, they will never get a fair shake and they will always be viewed as the other, the external, the whatever. And from that stemmed the idea of Zionism, Jewish self-determination and sovereignty beyond the religion
Cool,
itself, because they were, like
but
we already
that doesn't
articulated,
justify it
secular.
on indigeneity. That cool. Like,
Right, but no,
here's the
right,
thing. Here's the
but
thing. One second.
their
This is where we're
ethnic
really
background
important.
does.
They are
Yeah,
two different arguments. They are two
sure.
different arguments. And this is where I think you're being very, very, very slippery. Not actively, right? But I just want to make this clear. There is the question of indigeneity, and that I was talking about indigeneity. Their claims are not in line, quite clearly, with indigeneity. There is a question of safety, right? And that's interesting. We could have a discussion of safety, but they are fundamentally different questions, and they have to hop between them because safety doesn't justify the racist state of Israel, right? And indigeneity
Oh,
makes actually no sense with what they've done.
hold on. So the only reason, the part of the indigeneity comes in with where the location of this creation of the Jewish state would be. So if they realized it was a matter of safety and it was a matter of sovereignty and self-determination, fine, that's one aspect I agree with you. That's why they even dabbled in the idea of creating Israel and Argentina and Uganda and
Yeah, no,
elsewhere.
I'm aware.
Right.
And
But
then
then ultimately they chose Palestine because
they chose
once again,
Palestine for a few reasons. The Jews didn't
one of
fully
them was
choose Palestine.
indigeneity.
In part, the British chose Palestine. But
Well, but I mean, the Zionist movement concluded that it makes the only place that makes sense has been the 2,000-year-old place that the Jews have been worshiping towards for 2,000 years. Like it makes sense because once
I
again
know,
the
and so
ethnic.
that's a religious view.
Okay, and that's the
Yeah,
indigenous part of it.
that's the
Okay,
thing is I'm not going. Yeah, cool. That
okay.
this doesn't actually this if anything this is directly a counter justification, right? This was a theocratic, falsely ethno-state, colonial power, right?
No, because
None of those
theocracy
adjectives are going
would
to make
mean
me
that the
support it
rules.
more.
Hold on, theocratic would mean that they're governed by rabbinical law, which is simply patently
No, it
false,
wouldn't.
and
No,
you
no,
know
no, no,
that
no. It
because
would
you're
just mean that
informed. Yeah, it would.
that's wait, no, 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 no. No.
Like the mullahs
Theocratic is in
control Iran,
relation
right?
is in relate so you don't have to be you don't have to be fully in control, right? As a religion of a state for it to be theocratic, right? If a religion has influence in a government and religious views or religious beliefs are implemented into a government or at the very foundation of that government, right? It's at least in part a theocracy.
So
And
then
that's
America's a
obviously what
theocracy in your
Israel
opinion?
is.
Is American a
I don't.
theocracy?
So I believe there were Christian values that were built into it, but we worked very
Yeah.
hard, at least at the founding, to make it very, very clear that this was not a theocracy. But
Okay,
yeah,
fine. But
there's theocratic elements of it. But I
all
actively
right. So
here's
what
the
are we
fun part.
talking about?
I act 1 second.
Yeah.
You assume I support everything America is and does?
No, based on your metric, okay, based on your litmus test of what becomes a theocracy, every country is a theocracy because they're all based on the
Well, every
Judeo-Christian
country's a
values.
lot of things in a lot of ways,
Okay,
but
fine. So
like
then why are
this
you
isn't
why are you focusing
absolutist,
on
right?
Israel? No, but right. So then stop calling
Because
Israel a
wait, so
theocracy
I'm
because
just
obviously it's
describing
not.
what it is, and
But
you
it's
emphasizing the
not.
theocratic influence of it isn't helping.
I'm not emphasizing the.
That's
I'm
what I
actually
wait. So Guy
downplaying it.
Fox
I'm
is
trying to
actually
illustrate.
what's your real name? Sorry, do you go by your real name on here
Yeah, yeah,
ever,
that's my real name.
or just Guy Fox?
Yeah,
Guy Fox,
yeah,
is it?
yeah. It really is. You know who Guy Fox is.
Okay. Oh no. Yeah, I did. He was annoying, and also lied. I don't like liars. Oh my gosh! Wait, someone noticed that I really hate lies. Crazy. What is this? Yeah, no. Sorry. Okay, okay. Once again, so I'm going to state the rules really clearly. Everyone who disagrees with me, um, everyone who disagrees with me, send a guest request. Um, everyone who agrees with me, don't. I do love you, but don't. Okay, okay. Because it's gonna be really awkward when you come up here and we're like, "Hi, I agree with you." Blah blah blah. You know. I do pay taxes, my love. I do pay taxes. A boycott. So Pepsi is not on the official BDS boycott list. If you, I agree that it is not the best information, but it is on the pressure list. To the best of my understanding.
Hi, how you doing?
But if I'm wrong, correct me, everyone. Hello,
How are you?
doing real well. What'd you send a guest request to disagree on?
Of course, this disagree because the US and all the democratic country have to reach together. You see who support the other side. Support the other side is the North Korea, is the Russia, is China, is Syria, is all the dictatorship is one side, and the democratic
All the
country support the quiet.
dictatorships?
Yeah, Russia, North Korea,
All of them.
Syria. Give me one dictatorship who support Israel. All the dictatorships support the one side. All the
I mean,
democratic country
in fairness, Saudi
support.
Arabia was normalizing
But
relationships
even if
with Israel.
yeah, United Arab Emirates, they have a peace with Israel, but they support the Palestinians. All the dictatorships support the
Wait, they
Palestinians.
have
That's a
peace
fact.
with Israel and they support the Palestinians. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah, for sure. You can read
Also,
the statement.
why are all of those countries dictatorships in the first place?
Oh, you want to see why the dictatorship? Why North Korea dictatorship?
Oh yeah,
Why
let's talk about why
why
North Korea
Iran
is
is
a
dictatorship?
dictatorship. Why is North Korea a dictatorship?
Okay, so I can. I want to say why you really want to go into it, but you see a common you see something in common with those countries. The Palestinian Authority dictatorship,
I
the
don't think the
Gaza.
Americans have the upper ground. I think all the imperialist powers support Israel, and that's precisely the reason I don't. So why is North Korea
So
a
what do you prefer,
dictatorship?
the imperialism or the dictatorships? Where,
Well,
where
I
you
think
you
that
live,
one
you
is a
live in,
symptom. I think one second. I think that one is a symptom of the other, and I think we solve one first and then the other second. And dictatorships are by and large a symptom of imperialism, and not vice versa.
so you say the dictatorship, the regime, the imperialism is it's the victim say the imperialism is make us dictatorships.
I mean, that's 100% true in Afghanistan. That's 100% true in Iraq. That's 100% true in Iran, right? At least in part, it was, right? That's 100% true in Qatar, 100% true in Saudi Arabia, very, very true in North Korea, right? How many more do we need to list for this?
No, I don't agree with you even one of them.
Okay, let's talk
Even one,
about,
even none of them,
I don't know, Afghanistan. Let's talk about Afghanistan. Why is
we're talking about
Afghanistan under
Afghanistan.
extremist control right now?
Russia is imperialist.
What?
Russia that was controlling
Oh, okay.
Afghanistan.
So why is Russia non-democratic?
I talking Soviet Union who controlled Afghanistan. Yeah, she was imperialist or she was I don't know what you mean. The Soviet Union is imperialist. They control
The
Afghanistan.
Soviet
Yes,
what?
Soviet Union
Yeah, and
occupied Afghanistan. Yeah,
who supported the Mujahideen against the Afghans?
America.
Hmm. And then what did the Mujahideen later become?
You can say this about the Hamas, the age group. So the age group was
Hmm.
a movement of
That's
charity.
fascinating.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah.
who supported Hamas as a charity?
When there was a charity, Israel supported them.
Yeah, but what were they still jihadists when they were a charity?
No, there was in the in the
Yeah, they
fir- in the
absolutely
first.
were. If you look at their charter at the time, it was still equally despicable. And if you ask the Israeli state that directly said this, they said that they supported the Islamists and the jihadists precisely to counterbalance the PLO. So they've admitted it.
You're absolutely right, and you're part of your statement because I telling the truth even though I don't like it, but there was a policy in the beginning when they didn't know that the Islamic was established in Egypt as a Islamic movement, the Brotherhood of the Islam is called, and it spread all over the world to spread Islam. In the beginning and until now, I think it's not really a national movement. It's national of spreading the Islam and making all the region Islam a big Islamic state as a caliphate state. Caliphate is
Actually,
Islam, big
precisely,
Islamic.
it was Pan Arabism that you're describing, right? And a
Exactly.
lot of
Not
Pan
no, no, no,
Arabism,
no.
but this
Pen,
is really interesting. Pan Arabism. Sorry, I'm just going to cut you off there. Pan Arabism was not inherently an Islamist. Those are two
yeah,
different
exactly,
ideologies.
exactly. That was
So,
Nazar
but
regime was pan
you're
Arab.
conflating. Nazar was not Islamist.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are
Nazar was pan
okay, but that's
Arab
diff.
and is not Islamic.
But that's different than what you said.
Yeah, absolutely right. So we're
Okay.
talking about the age group. It was pan-Arab. So in the beginning, Israel didn't think they want. It was like a big utopic movement who want a big Islamic state. They don't even think. They
No,
don't
no, no.
even
One
think.
in a, sorry. The Pan-Arabists were primarily much more secular than Hamas was. Just to
Yeah,
be very,
yeah.
very clear.
You're absolutely right.
The
I agree with you.
PLO famously supported Pan-Arabism.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely. The Nazi PLO and everything was
Okay, so
national pan-Arabism.
and that's
But
different than Hamas because Hamas was
yeah, totally
Islamist.
different. I
Okay,
absolutely
and then
agree.
and then Israel supported the jihadists, the Islamists,
No, no,
not the Pan-Arabists.
but what you're absolutely right what you say. But in the end of your say, it's not true. Israel, why they support the Islamics? Because the Islamic movement wasn't about Palestine liberation. There was about a topic of a Palestinian of a Muslim Khalif around the world. Not not pan-Arabism, not nationalism, but a big something big that not even think it's not really true. They didn't know it wasn't for Palestinian state. The age group, it wasn't age group, but the Islamic wasn't about Palestinian state. Still now, I think, but never mind until now. It was like big, like the ISIS. They want big caliphate of Islam around the world. That's the difference because the Israeli didn't think they didn't talk about Palestine. The age group didn't talk about Palestine, liberate Palestine, and everything. They think about the topic stuff. We want all the Middle East, and after this Europe, and after this
I don't see how
all the
this makes it better.
Uh, you're absolutely sometimes right about it because it's not better, but they're talking about
Okay.
religious spirit who talk about the mosque, about some Arab, some Muslim idea, but they think they are charity, they give money to the people. You're right, it was mistake. You're
They think
absolutely
they're
right.
an Islamist charity and they want to support for Islamism
Yeah,
because it's a counterbalance to the PLO,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
then
you're right.
supporting extremism.
In
And I
the
don't
end,
support
it was
supporting it.
extreme.
So I believe that the reason we see a lot of extremism in formerly colonized or imperialized areas is precisely that reason that we've just looked at.
No, it was that
It's
innocent,
the same reason
innocent.
that we see extreme racializing in formerly colonized areas. We see India,
Yeah,
Pakistan, India, Bangladesh,
it was.
right? A split Cyprus, a split Yugoslavia, right? We see North and South Sudan,
I
right? We
tell you
see
what you
Somaliland and Somalia. So
I
what's
tell you what to
the
compare
where's
compare
the
this.
confusion?
I tell you what to compare this. What the mistake and this and mistake what's happened now. When the age group talking all the time and make they say they want to enter the settlements inside Israel and do this and do this and they're talking about it many years. And Israel say, oh, we give them money and we give them $300 million from Qatar and we give them work and we give them this. It's not going to happen because they just TikTok, but it's not going to happen. So they think about to it's they think the Israeli and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and this is why now all the Israelis are against Netanyahu because over the last 20 years he was ruling here. He was thinking, oh, we give Hamas, we give the age group money, we give them work in Israel, we give them this and this and this. It's just talking and talking and talking, and he was mistaken. He was.
Okay. Well, that's fun. Okay. Well, let's see if we can get someone who can